Welcome to Belfast, Wales. So this is the first episode of the 2021. Today we have Tony Summers, or Anthony Summers, who's returning. Had Anthony on before. So if you haven't seen that episode, I would suggest go back and watch that. It gives you about Anthony's life. But today I have Anthony back on because I think this was maybe 2010. Is that right? You made the film that's got the DVD here, Embrace Your Fears.
It's a good question, Jonathan. I can't remember. It's a good while ago, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good while, yeah. So we're here to talk about this film today, Embrace Your Fears. And you can still purchase this film. I've got obviously the DVD copy, but is it available in digital download or?
Yeah, it's on a download. It's on I think it's on our it's the Real Combat System website.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's on my Anthony Summers one as well. I have got some DVDs left, but if people prefer the digital now, don't they?
Yeah.
So you can download it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on the Real Combat System site.
Yeah. What
I do with Matty Evans.
Okay. Well, what I can do is I'll have a look today, and then when I put this episode out, if anyone's watching this, if you look at the link in the description below. You'll find a link for it, and they can access it there. But I'd definitely recommend Embrace Your Fears. It's really good. I think it's a 1 hour, 51-minute documentary or film, and you interview likes of Jeff Thompson. I forget the guy. Apologies, the guy that owns Red Corner.
Glenn Smith.
Glenn Smith, that's it. I had Smith in my head, but I couldn't remember. Yeah, so definitely recommend. So, Tony, just to kind of get things moving, you started the documentary. The film starts off pretty much you're in a graveyard in Coventry, and you pretty much talk about start with the end in mind, and you also use the Matrix as a reference. It's like basically taking the red pill or the blue pill. Could you explain about that? About starting with the end in mind, and you also mentioned about death, and all fears come back to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tenuous link, but with anxiety, which is really big at the moment. It's interesting, isn't it? Because they say that this is the safest time we've ever lived as human beings, yet our mental health problems are through the roof. So, I find that whole concept really interesting. It's an area that I do a lot of work in. And with anxiety, one of the theories is that you can trace most anxiety back to a fear of death. If we trace it all the way back, say someone's got an anxiety of flying, it's not the actual flying, it's the plane crashing, or heights. It's the falling, isn't it? So what happens if you fall? What happens if the plane crashes? So the reason that I started in the cemetery with the DVD, I wanted to start with the biggest fear, and then think, well, if I can face my biggest fear, then all the other fears would pale into insignificance. Hopefully, that was the idea. So let's start, because a lot of people have got a fear of death, but I was coming from a place, well, is it a fear of death or is it a fear of life? Because a lot of people are scared to live and actually take chances and do things. I think we all are to a certain extent. So that was the idea with the DVD, Jonathan, starting there. And it was interesting as well because the cover of the DVD is St. Michael and the Devil off Coventry Cathedral. And I filmed part of the DVD in a graveyard over the road from the gym. And just because it was near the gym, I didn't know. I thought, it's a graveyard over there. Let's go and film over there. Probably should have asked for permission, but nobody came anyway. So the dead people are not going to say anything.
Yeah.
But then when I got home, I was telling my wife about it, that I'd been filming in the graveyard. And she said, where did you film it? And I said, in the graveyard opposite the gym. And she said, that's St. Michael's. She knew the church. I didn't know. So I just thought, wow, there's another coincidence, So that was interesting. So, but I mean, that's why I started with death. I thought start with the biggest fear because it's gonna come.
Yeah.
So and especially I don't know, maybe it's just Western culture. We don't like to talk. I've worked in hospices as well, and they make you look at your own death. because obviously you're dealing with death, you're dealing with dying people, so they make you look at your own death, which is quite interesting. Yeah. So that's why I started there, Jonathan.
It's interesting when you look at even my gran. I remember my gran talking about this would be what you're up to my 1920s. She always remembers her brother died of tuberculosis. You seen disabled. There was a lot more. People don't realize this. There was a lot more illnesses in your face back then. She remembers children with braces on their legs, children bow-legged, children with different illnesses. Then they wouldn't survive, and people, adults in their prime, getting tuberculosis and dying. And this is not that long ago when you really think about it. This is you're looking maybe about 80, 90 years ago. And if you go back further in history, I mean, our ancestors, death was kind of all around you. I mean, infant mortality rates, especially in the UK, were very high. Women dying in childbirth. My wife works in a maternity ward, and she comes back with some stories, and you think back not that long ago that lady would have died, that child would have died, and I think we've lost. I'm not saying it's a good thing to always be surrounded by death, but I think we've lost, as you were saying, in today's world, we've really lost perspective on this, and we kind of shield ourselves. We're kind of like, let's not think about it. Oh, that's way in the future, until unfortunately it maybe visits us in an unfortunate accident, or someone dies unexpectedly or suddenly. Basically, what I suppose the point I'm trying to make is, like, how can we better? I think today, how can we better internalize that, or keep that in mind? Because it is very easy to kind of go, like, you think about it, you go, people go, that's quite dark, and I know some people kind of go too much into it. How do you? I suppose I'm asking is, how do you find that balance of keeping that in your mind, that it propels you forward in the right way, as opposed to just wallowing in it and going, "Oh, I'm deaf. It's what's the point in life?" Maybe that's a very big question.
No, it makes sense. I guess, some people might look at life and go, well, we're going to die anyway, what's the point? But I think that's what you're saying. But I guess it's all perception, isn't it? For me, the perception bit's massive. And I think you're right as well. It's a good point, Jonathan. In the past, even if you go back to cavemen, cavewomen days, those dangers would have been real. Whereas it seems to me a lot of the dangers we face now are they're not even real dangers. It's not like a saber-toothed tiger's going to eat you or something. I think the world's changed, and social media and television, I think that's had a lot to do with that. If you go back in history, I wouldn't have known what was going on. I'm in England, so I wouldn't have known what was going on in Northern Ireland unless we wrote each other a letter and explained, or a telegram or something. I remember my dad getting telegrams from Ireland. His family were from Ireland. A telegram now, but that's the only way you could get information. Whereas now it's beamed right into our living rooms. We're seeing it all the time, and some of the things we're seeing, social media and stuff like that, is pretty horrific. I saw one last week and I regretted watching it, of a guy being stabbed and killed. I think it was in Italy somewhere. I tried to avoid things like that, but somehow I ended up watching it, and I was disappointed that I did watch it. It was quite disgusting. But those type of things, I don't think we realise that they traumatise us all the time. So we're constantly getting. They might only be small traumas, but we're constantly getting them, and they're negative. So we're being bombarded with that all of the time, and it builds up. Whereas if we go back to cavemen, cavewomen days, there would have been a lot more real threats there. Every day would have been a threat for them, I'm guessing. But once they faced that threat, that was it till the next threat. Whereas we're being bombarded with it all the time, watching the news, newspapers. And unfortunately, they call it negativity bias, don't they? As human beings, we seem to home in on the negative stuff. I think, it's just, it's hard. It's a really hard one, Jonathan. I think about this a lot because I think society almost seems to run off fear. Let's scare people. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not. I'd like to think it's not deliberate.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Like you need to wear this aftershave. You need to drive this car. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. You're going to miss out. So I think a lot of society is based on fear.
I was reading like over the weekend there. So today's the 4th of January. Just give us anybody a reference. And I was reading an article of a very well known celebrity, and pretty much he wrote the article, and the title he wrote, probably people will guess when I say this, was he said, I was afraid I would die alone in a plastic tent. And kind of, actually, he's a celebrity I would never really look at or listen to. But actually, because I've seen that title, I actually clicked on the story. And when I read through it, pretty much this individual had COVID over Christmas. So that's just over a week ago. And to go from, as he was according to him, on death's door, and maybe he felt like that. Obviously, I don't know. I'm just going from outside looking in. I realised very quickly that the article was written in a way to get me to actually click on it. Yes, he had COVID. Yes, he was ill, but he recovered. And when you read into the article what he said, it was just like anybody else's experience with this virus, but he'd obviously sensationalized it to get people to click on it, and he hyped it up. I'm not saying it's not deadly, but because everyone's watching this, and I don't kind of go down a rabbit hole here, but I'm just saying, I think you're right. I think today the media and all things are hyped up because of competition with other news outlets, media. You've got the rise of people like myself doing podcasts, or people doing commentary and news. So there's a lot of competition, and I think as you said, fear sells. I mean, if you have your news article and you had two stories, say one was like a bomb went off somewhere and 90 people were killed, compared to a granny who saved 1,000 orphans and raised them up to be successful, the news story is going to focus on the bomb and the positive. Kind of going back, I'm kind of maybe digressed a bit. Again, back to the film, you mentioned, you just touched on it there. There's two types of fear. There's real fear, and then there's false fear. Could you explain those two? I know maybe sounds very self-evident. Could you explain those two types of fear, real fear and false fear?
I think what I was saying there, Jonathan, is obviously we're born with certain fears to keep us survive and help us to survive. And there's different theories on this as well. Some people say we're only born with two fears. It's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And other people say there's other innate fears there as well. And I guess what I'm saying, it goes back to what we've just been talking about. What are the real fears? One of the things I use a lot, if I'm standing up to give a presentation, I don't know. I think the hardest one I did was 70 consultants in a hospital in London. And consultants can be hard work. They're very, very clever people. And I remember just before I went in, just as I walked into the auditorium to do the presentation, the trainer before me had been obviously given a different training session. She walked past me and she went, "Oh, good luck with these lot." And I was like, "Oh, thanks for that." I was already really nervous. But then, when I stand there, having done all the stuff with Jeff, the animal days and stuff like that, when I'm standing in front of these people, I think, well, do you know what? They're not going to punch me in the face. They're not going to try and choke me out. So, I go back to things like that, being a fireman, sometimes being in scary situations, so I use those things as markers in my life and just think, well, what am I getting scared of? This is not going to be that bad. Worst case scenario, they're not going to like the presentation. That's it. I'm not going to die, but there's a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. It's a good book, actually. And he talks about how to survive, again, going back in our history, to survive, we would have needed to belong to a tribe. And if that tribe kicked you out for any reason, your life expectancy would have been really short. So his theory is that when you stand up and you talk to a group of people, if that group of people don't like you, it taps in. He would say that's an innate fear. you know. So, you know, there's another angle on fear for you. You know, the group of people don't like me, so it taps into something inside me, that rejection, that I think I'm going to die. Whereas logically, I know if, you know, if they don't like the presentation, I'm not going to die. You know, they're not going to punch me in the face. But some of this stuff is quite deep. And again, I think as human beings, we're geared to look for the negative, Jonathan. That's why it's so hard. You know, I've done courses before where maybe I've had 20 people on them. 19 people go, loved it, great course. One, normally, you know, it's normally like women in the NHS. One woman will go, oh, that was terrible. And I forget the 19 and home in on the one. And I've often wondered about that. What is that? Why do I home in on the one person? I've got not. If it was the other way around and you were telling me, Jonathan, I'd go, Jonathan, 19 people loved you. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Why are you focusing on the one? But we focus on the one because they're a potential threat. You know, 19 people like me, so they're not a threat anymore. You know, they like me, they're okay. But the one person who doesn't like me, you know, what's that about? I want to try and win her over. What did I do wrong? Because at some level, I know it's not life threatening, but it taps into, you know, they're a potential threat. And that's what I like the theory about negativity bias, where we look for the negative, which goes back to what we were saying about the news earlier. And they know that we'll go towards, like you were saying, Jonathan, they know that we'll look at the negative news headline before the positive news headline.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we've got to train ourselves to change. And you can do it. You've just got to be aware of it, you know, bring it into your awareness.
Definitely, because I mean, like, give people an example. Like for myself, you know me, and I spoke about this in the past, and I was very badly bullied during high school, and I remember the bullying kind of followed me thereafter, and obviously that was because I was in a kind of a victim state, so I was kind of advertising myself as a great target to pick on. But when I made that switch in the martial arts, I did go through a phase, which was actually quite long, but constantly looking for potential threats, and it's almost like literally it's like you're on autopilot. You don't know it, and
right.
It's based on obviously fear. And the fear obviously I had then was history will repeat. It's like if I don't act aggressively at a small thing, it will grow into something that I can't handle, and I'll be back to where I was again. And that was what was going in my head. And it was actually, I'm not going to bore people in the details here, but that actually followed me through even with work, dealing with customers. If customers sold a certain trait, which I would, it was almost like a gut feeling. I'd pick up that person was a potential to be like some of the people in the past. I can't explain it. It's just it was a look, maybe the way they carried themselves or the way they acted towards other people. I would just go, that's a bully, that's a threat, and I would go into aggressive mode and almost kind of try and like, so I know what you are, I know what you're going to try and do. There's a line you're not going to cross, and if you do cross, I'm willing to back it up, which is not makes you come across as aggressive, not a very brutal person. And I think going again, kind of going the long way around, that's a false fear. That's me taking a real fear from the past, and then that real fear becomes a false fear, because not everyone is like that. I mean, I think it's like, I know I'm jumping ahead in your documentary. You interviewed the Taekwondo guy.
That's all right. Dave.
Was this? No, it was no, it wasn't Steve. It was Dave Hunter. Sorry, it was Dave Hunter. People watch. He's a Taekwondo guy hitting the pads. He was the kind of same. He obviously he suffered a lot more severe abuse. He was sexually abused and stuff like that. And he kind of, that was the same thing. He carried that. So you have a real fear, and then it kind of your body's, I guess, protect you from that ever happening again. And then you kind of, is that right? You have like real fears that can manifest into false fears that you think, well, everyone's like that. I need to be on guard.
I think I think what happens, you know, the trauma stuff's changed a lot now, Jonathan. You know, we used to think that trauma was just soldiers coming back from war, you know, a police officer or a firefighter seeing dead bodies and things. Whereas now the theory is, you know, that all of us have experienced trauma throughout our lives at different times, you know, or everybody. And there might be only small traumas, but they build up. So what I've noticed a lot, and again, it ties in with everything we're saying, that a lot, especially anxious people, think, like you just said, that example of being bullied. What happens then is we go to being hyper vigilant. You know, we talk about in self-defense, don't we, about being vigilant and being aware of what's going on around you. But I find that a lot of people, you know, when they've had trauma, and like I say, we all have, if you're not careful, you're going around being hyper vigilant. And that's, you know, that takes a hell of a lot of energy. Your body's in fight or flight mode pretty much all of the time, you know, and the things that are going on in your body as well, it's quite scary. You know, the cortisol, you're in a different nervous system. You're in your sympathetic nervous system rather than your parasympathetic nervous system, which is when you're relaxed. So part of the process that I go through with people, and it sounds really cheesy, but the old things about the breathing, grounding people, you know, what's going on at this moment in time, you're okay. It's just, again, it's reminding yourself of that, because when you've had past traumas like bullying, and that is a trauma, you know, you're going to school every day wondering if you're going to get beat up or who's going to pick on you, what's going to be said to you, you're going to be belittled, those things. That's trauma. You know, it's horrible. So because of that, like you said, you're looking for it all the time. And it's, you know, what that does to your body is, you know, we know now that stress affects the walls of our DNA, you know, so, you know, they say stress is a silent killer. So these people that are going around hypervigilant all the time, you know, I've gone through spells of it myself, Jonathan, where I go to bed at night and I can't sleep. And I'm going, what's wrong with you? Yeah. Where's this from? And you might never work out where it's from. Might be way back somewhere, but sitting in your, you know, my mum used to say to us as kids, you know, that man had robbed the eye out of your head while you're asleep, and, you know, sleep with one eye open. She's an old Dublin woman, and, you know, sleep, and you're like, you think, oh, you know, as a kid, how do I sleep with one eye open? But there's something there about going to sleep, and for me, they're going through that spell of going to sleep and feeling vulnerable. If I'm awake, I don't mean this to sound big-headed, but if I'm awake, I can see what's coming and I'm okay, you know. I've done lots of training. I'm okay. I know there's loads of people out there that get beaten up, but I'll give it a good go. But if I'm asleep, I'm vulnerable. So that was something that I had to really work on. You know, when I'm asleep, they could get me, whoever they are. You know, very unlikely. So even what I'm saying is, even this stuff's quite deep. So even when you're asleep, it's like that subconscious brain is still ticking over and telling you, you know, don't go to sleep. Be careful. So, and I find that I think that's what's going on in society at the moment as well. There's so much of that about, because it goes back to what we said, because of the news, social media, you know, especially with all the COVID thing at the moment, we've just been bombarded. And I know it's important, and, you know, like, I don't want to get into the COVID stuff because everybody seems to get tribal with it, but, you know, everyone's got their own opinions of it. But, you know, we're being bombarded with it again and again and again. You know, I'm picking on the news a little bit, but they'll tell you a story from one angle, then tell you the story. Oh, this is what it's like from over here. This is what it's like. You know, somebody gets murdered. They tell you at the beginning of the news, so and so got murdered. Then they'll tell you, they'll take you to the scene of the murder. Then they'll take you to someone who knew them. Then they'll take you to where they grew up. And you're thinking it's the same story, but from about 4 different angles. You told me at the beginning somebody got murdered. That's it. You know, but what I'm saying is we're bombarded with it, and then we wonder why we're going around hyper vigilant all the time and anxious, and, you know, like the mental health stuff is going through the roof.
I think does
that make sense?
No, definitely, and I think I think we need to, as a society, we also need to realise that there's a price that we're paying for this, and the price that we're paying, we don't know we're paying. So it's like having a bank account, and someone's going in and going, right, I'll take £200 out of your account. And we're just carrying on, and people wondering what are you talking about, John? This is just anecdotal evidence, but again, I know somebody that works in a hospital, and they work in the maternity ward, and in the past few weeks there, the amount of premature babies being born is actually risen, and it's due to mothers feeling under stress due to the current circumstances. and it got that bad that I think there was, from what I can remember them telling me, there was one bed available in Scotland in the whole UK for a premature baby. If there's any more premature babies being born in Northern Ireland, they'd already sent some down to Dublin. That got filled up pretty quickly, and the other alternative was then sending premature babies and their mothers to Switzerland. And so that again, that's anecdotal evidence. Someone said it was somebody who worked in the hospital told me this, and it's that price, and as you say, it's going back to what I was saying. It for me, the cost of being hyper vigilant, and don't get me wrong, it saved my bacon numerous times, because you could right away. There was a couple of situations I was in. I knew the person had an intent to attack me. I was out somewhere. One time there was a guy asked me. This is straight out of Jeff Thompson's Dead or Alive book. The guy asked me for the time, and you could tell it wasn't. It was just I just knew, and I had a watch on my arm, and I said, "Sorry, I don't have a watch." And he never looked down. He just kind of stared at me, and then he walked away. And I just so it's kind of, as you say, when you're stressed or we're carrying stress or we don't address the stress we're under, it manifests itself into obviously like harm, like the cortisol effect on the body, abusing alcohol and drugs, or comfort eating. So it has it's like an energy. It's like a pressure. It has to go somewhere, and then it comes back on us and does us harm. The other thing about false fears, and obviously false fears obviously hold us back from becoming a better person. Maybe we get a job opportunity that would be good for us, but there's that fear of, what, I'm in a safe job. I don't like this job, but I'm safe. I know what pay is coming. You talk about. I pause it. My head's like Sweetie Mice today. Guy on the Red Corner Gym, Glenn Smith, in the interview, again, continue on with the false fears. Glenn Smith, he was a scaffolder, and then he went on to own or build up Red Corner Gym, and he talks about that process. Can you touch on that? I know I'm getting you to speak for somebody else, but if you can even elaborate on the whole false fears that limits people from making that kind of leap. And obviously Glenn took that leap, but he built it up in small steps.
I think there's a payoff for all of this, Jonathan. So if you look at the fear, I always say to people, what's the payoff? What are you getting out of this? And sometimes it really, excuse my language, but it really pisses people off. They think they're doing something, and I'm saying, well, what's the payoff? Well, you think I do this on purpose? Well, at some level, yeah. At some level, you're making a choice. So, and normally it's because we feel that it's keeping us safe. So the fear is trying to keep us safe. There's a part of us that's trying to stay safe, saying, well, don't go and do that. Don't put your head above the parapet because you might get it knocked off. So stay where you are. So, again, it makes perfect sense. I guess it's challenging that, isn't it? Which most people, I would say, I wouldn't want to put a figure on it, but I'd say the majority of people don't really challenge it and stay where they are in life, which is fine if you're okay there. But if you're staying there because of fear, it's understanding that, and understanding that that's a part of you it's actually trying to help you, but it can hinder you. So with Glenn, Glenn was a scaffolder. He started doing private one-to-one boxing lessons and got really popular. He hired a little room, and he couldn't fit people in the room. It got that busy, so he decided to open his own gym, which was a massive decision for him. Cost a lot of money. And he had probably 2 or 3 really tough years where he was doubting whether he'd done the right thing. And that's another thing as well that people forget. If you make a big decision, Jonathan, whether it's to leave a relationship, go into a relationship, start a new job, you're going to have doubts. It's part of the process, and you will doubt, did I do the right thing here? Should I have stayed where I was? And that's part of the process as well. That's normally where people wobble and tend to go backwards and go back into their old life again, instead of, like I say, just understanding, look, I'm gonna have doubts here. It's normal. So, with Glenn, the red corner's flying now. I think the COVID thing's affecting him like everybody, but it's a great gym. Everybody goes there, loves it. He runs it really well. There's no ego in there. He's done really well, but he'll tell you how hard that was, to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a way around that.
Yeah.
You have to face
them. Going from what you said, and kind of going from obviously when I was sitting watching the documentary or the film, sorry, and I was going through it, writing notes. I've kind of got a model in my head, and it kind of, so if you're maybe standing on that edge of making a decision, so obviously if you're working in a 9-to-5 job, safe income and all the rest of it, and you want to make that leap into, we're going to use an example as start a business, you always have a lot of fears, and most of it's internal. Sometimes it's other people's voices playing in your head, like, what are you doing? This job's safe, you've got a good income. And then you make that leap, you take that leap of faith into that environment of wherever it is you want to become self-employed. You get inevitably, you will get resistance, you'll get setbacks, because you're going into uncharted territory. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to make silly mistakes, and sometimes that doubt, then that wee inner voice becomes strong. Is there a way that you can prepare for that? You can kind of, so when that wee voice gets stronger at a failure, say example, you launch a product and it completely tanks, no one's interested, people are actually emailing you saying, please stop advertising, and it's horrendous, but that with refinement you can make it, but that voice of doubt is the loudest voice in your head. Is there a way then that we can, is there a way around that, or is it just something that it's either you win or it wins? That makes sense.
It goes back to what we were saying, doesn't it, about that we're geared to look for the negatives, and I think that just a lot of stuff is about just bringing this into your awareness. So as human beings, we're geared to look for threats. Like I said, it goes back, I don't want to repeat myself here, but that negativity bias is massive. So first thing is to be aware of that. That's what we're doing. And then I think the second thing is listening to you then, Jonathan, to know why you're doing it. That why is massive as well. If you haven't got a why, you're not going to do it, because things are going to get hard. Like you said, if you're leaping from one area to another, whether it's businesses, relationships, whatever it is, you're going to have your doubts. And it's when you're having those doubts, you need to have a why. Why am I doing this? And if you haven't got that, you're going to struggle. I think it was Nietzsche who said, didn't he, that if you've got a strong enough why, you'll overcome any how. And that just makes perfect sense to me. I think you've got to have a meaning. You've got to have a why, and that meaning's got to be strong. And I think that's part of the thing. If we go back as well to society at the moment, the COVID thing, I think a lot of people are feeling isolated and things like that. So, I was reading a book yesterday. My friend Matty Evans sent me a book. It's really good, actually. It's called The Tribe, I think. And he was just on about, when he'd been a reporter in Sarajevo, when, all the war had kicked off. And he was just on about different wars, about how people all pulled together. And mental health problems, you'd actually think that they went up in the war, but they actually dropped. Because people had a why, they were pulling together. They were trying to get through this. So when in the war, the Germans were dropping bombs on London and Coventry and different places, hoping to shatter, that everybody would get downhearted, but it actually brought people together. And the same happened in Germany as well, because it actually brought people together. People pulled together, and I think we've lost that as well, that help, that connection.
Yeah.
For me, helping people is really important. It's one of my biggest values, service, connecting with people and helping people. It's one of the things that I've found hard with the COVID stuff, that isolation. Working from home, doing things over this way, it's better than nothing, but face to face is better. So
I think that's a good point. That you again, this goes back to the start of this discussion we had. Times of like we're living in, like, people arguing this, but the results are in. I mean, we're living in an unprecedented peaceful time in any time of history. There's more people being born than dying. Infant mortality rates are dropping, poverty rates are dropping. I mean, things are steadily getting better. There's more medicines. Our that amount of knowledge is increasing. And you're right about, like, the stories of the reporter in Sarajevo. I mean, I think hard times. That's one thing we forget, is that times are really tough. When people pull together, they actually get through it. They overcome like unimaginable horrors and terrors. Going into we call it the fear, but obviously go in your book or going through the film, Embrace Your Fears. The real answer really would just, how much would this be true? The real answer really lies within. I mean, I think the only person who can get you through your fears really is yourself. In other words, salvation lies within. Would you agree with that, or how much help should people take on, or just be kind of rely on yourself? I know that's a kind of a scale to balance.
I think for me, Jonathan, you're right. Definitely. When I'm working with people, I don't know, 99% of the people I meet, I just think, God, this guy or this woman's amazing. They just can't see it. They can't see what they've got. We're designed as human beings, everything about us, if you think about it, we're designed to look out. Our eyes look out. We're always looking out, and comparing ourselves to other things and looking at what's going on instead of looking in, and I think on the inside, I just think people are amazing. Human beings are amazing. So part of my job, I think it's okay to ask for help, but part of my job is just to hold a mirror up to them and get them to see how amazing they already are, so yeah, definitely the answers are within, but I think it's important, again, we go back to that connection, to connect with other people and ask, and it's okay to ask for help. Everybody needs help at times. I've got people, as a therapist, I have to go and see somebody once a month. It's part of the regulations, but I get a lot out of it. I actually look forward to it, offloading and somebody just listening to me for an hour instead of me, listening to everybody else for an hour, which I enjoy anyway. I like the work that I do. But yeah, the answer's definitely within. And I've got my own beliefs as well. I believe in God. I don't know how that works, Jonathan, and everyone's got different versions of it. Yeah. But, for me, there's like that spark, that divine spark, whatever you want to call it, is inside everybody. It's just getting people to see that. I think we're all guided. It's just being aware of that. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a long-winded way. I think it does come from within, but sometimes we do need a little push from somebody outside. We forget who we are. And we forget where we're from. Yeah. And for me, that's another thing with death as well, going back to the death thing. I don't know how I'm going to feel, if I'm lying there dying. It might be completely different. But there's part of me thinking, well, that's another journey. Yeah. And that's where faith comes in, who knows, like a baby coming into the world, isn't it? It's crying, it's scared, I'm sure, I've always thought this, if the baby could talk when it was born, its first words would be, what the squeezed, pulled, pushed, come out of a really dark, warm place into this cold light. It must be a massive shock. It's probably a good job they can't talk, isn't it? The air would be blue, wouldn't it? But I've sort of got that same thing about, death as well. I'm guessing it's going to be scary, but, on the other side will be a whole new adventure.
Yeah.
That helps.
And I suppose I know it kind of, we'll keep coming back to this. I suppose it always, it comes back to false fears. I think it's like, sometimes you're going in for something, or you're going in, you're going to do something that's completely out of your comfort zone, and your mind hypes it up far worse than it actually turns out to be. And you actually kind of go, that was actually quite good. That I did well, or if it was like a job interview, I did better than what I thought I was going to. And I think
that's right.
I suppose it's again, I suppose I'm trying to grip it down. The false fears are they're all kind of our experiences or our interactions with family, teachers, religious leaders, what we're hearing in the news, what we're reading in books. It's that our interpretation of the world kind of, suppose that has an input more powerful than maybe what we realise. And I think we forget that, and so that forms a script. I suppose like if you want to kind of in your mind, you've got all these advisors based on that, and they're voting no, don't do that. You could get injured or whatever. And I know again, I'm coming back round again to how fears manifest. In the film, there's a boxer, Troy James, and you mentioned in that his fears were manifesting in a physical way. He had issues with his chest, and then when he realised what was happening, the issues cleared up. Would you be able to go into a wee bit more detail on that? I know you played a role in helping him manage that.
Yeah. Well, I think Troy was a good level professional boxer. He fought at a European level, British level, really unlucky, really. Boxing's a funny sport, you know. He should have definitely been a champion somewhere along the line, really good level. But yeah, when he first started, you know, the trainers in the gym were saying, you know, he's a young kid, this kid's got massive potential. But he sort of froze a little bit. And that's what happened to me, Jonathan. You know, when I fought with Jeff, I fought in the Valley Tudor a couple of times in front of a couple of thousand people, and I just never performed because I was so full of fear, that doubt. You know, I know that I just never performed to anything like my ability. The fear, it's that fight or flight, isn't it? You know, or there's a third F, which is freeze. And for me, you know, I would get in there, but it was almost like my arms and legs were like lead. You know, I was just trying to get in and get out of it as quick as possible, win or lose, which is not a good attitude, really. So that's why I liked working with some of the young boxers, because I know how much that stuff had affected me. And there's no worse feeling than, I've heard professional footballers say, you know, there's no worse feeling than walk off the pitch having been beaten and know that you didn't perform to the best of your ability. If you've gone out there and you've given it your best and you've lost, then, you know, you can't do anything else. So, you know, I really enjoyed working with some of the young boxers at the Red Corner, some of the young professionals, because I knew the impact that stuff could have. So when I was working with Troy, he kept getting chest infections just before big fights. And, you know, I was trying to explain to him all of this stuff. You know, it's your body. Again, it's the fear. It's your body trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
You know, so because you're not listening, you're still going forward. It's that powerful. Your mind's that powerful. It's actually creating an illness. So now you've got the perfect excuse not to fight because you've got a chest infection or, you know, you've got a cold. So, you know, and he did have these things, but I think our minds are that powerful. We can create these things and they're real, but, you know, it just shows you how powerful your mind is. So, and then he came to me one day and he said, I've had this dream, Tony. It's really weird. And he said, you know, I could tell he was a bit reluctant to tell me because it was that strange a dream. And he said, I said, well, you know, you don't have to tell me. It's up to you. And then he said, well, he said, in my dream, he said, fluid, some type of liquid was flowing down from my brain into my chest. And I was just like, how much clearer do you need this message? Do you know what I mean? It was almost like a light bulb moment. He hadn't worked it out. I said, that's, you know, your subconscious, your dreams are telling you, look, your problems are here, not here. And then after that, he just, you know, he flew. I can't remember, he won 20 odd professional fights and, like I said, fought at a good level and fought at all the top venues and stuff like that. So, yeah, your mind, you know, our minds are so powerful. And again, I had it, you know, I knew that because of my own experience.
Yeah.
You know, and at the time you're walking away and you're devastated because you've lost. but I knew, you know, no disrespect to my opponents because they won and that's it, you know, fair play to them. But, you know, again, I bring everything back to myself. What's going on for me? You know, what's going on for me here? What's going on? If I'm getting annoyed with somebody, go, what's going on? What are they touching in me? I just keep bringing everything back to me. You know, what's going on in me? I think I've said this before, Jonathan, when we point at people, one finger goes towards them, but three are coming back at us, you know, so keep looking at yourself. What I can only really work on myself.
Yeah.
I've found, you know, again, it sounds corny, but when I work on myself and I'll get myself right, whatever that is, the people around me start to change anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the situation in a different way and they can see there's something different about me as well.
I think that's something that's been in my head the past month, and it goes to obviously the current situation. Sorry to go back to that, but you see a lot of people kind of pointing the finger at everybody else. I mean, the government's blaming everybody, everyone's blaming each other, and I think the thing that's been in my head is well, if you just take care of your own actions and get on as best you can, that's all you can do. You can't control what other people do or say. And I think that's one thing that, again, going back to the situation I had reacting to other people, was I had to really kind of go, you take care of yourself. I control how I react, and by control how I react is ultimate power. Because if someone says something and you react and you're reactive, you're just like a toy. Push the button and watch it go. And there was a situation there recently. Someone was kind of passive aggressive and made a few. It was a silly thing, and the old me would kind of countered back. Almost felt like I have to get my bit in. And I didn't. I walked on, completely ignored it, and you seemed like looking, going, "Oh, I didn't get a response," and you're like, "No, it's just pointless." And by giving that person the silence and walking away, you're showing you're not worth my time or my energy to react to that. Obviously,
but that's the key. That's the key, Jonathan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't give it any energy.
Yeah.
Whatever you give energy to will grow. So, you know, whatever you take energy away from it'll go away. It will die. You know, you see that on social media a lot, don't you? I've had people in the past, you know, say something, you know, I know people that do it. They'll put something controversial on there and people start replying to them and they end up in big debates, and it's just a complete waste of energy. I just don't even reply a lot of the time. Just get on whatever.
Yeah.
Just get on with it. You know, and there's a saying, isn't there, that the power's in the gap. You know, so that instead of responding straight away, wait.
Yeah.
You know, and give yourself a couple of seconds, the old count to 10 bit. You know, there's a book called The Chimp Paradox, isn't there? But, you know, where he talks about the chimp and the chimp being really, the chimp reacts quicker than the human being, which ties in with parent, adult, child, which is another type of therapy. But if that chimp bit or that child bit in me is reacting first and it's fast, it's going to be a completely different reaction to the adult. So that giving taking a few seconds before I reply gives my adult brain a chance to catch up, and my reply will probably be a lot different to what my chimp or child brain would have said. Yeah. You know, my chimp or child brain might go, what do you mean by that? Come on then. Whereas my adult bit will go, what's the point? Yeah. So again, giving yourself a little time.
Definitely, and it's amazing. It's amazing how powerful that part of your brain is. I mean, not that long ago there was a situation, and I did the right thing. See, for hours afterwards, that wee voice was winding me up. You can let that person get away with that. Yeah. Is it, you made yourself look weak. It was almost like someone was in the car with me, taunting me, going, "You can let that fly. You can let that." And it was just, it was unreal. It was really trying to. Was it myself? I was goading myself to react, and I didn't. I just, it's not. It's I was just shocked how persistent it was.
Powerful.
Yeah, unreal. Yeah.
And there'll be voices, even though it's your voice now, Jonathan. There'll be voices from the past You know, you should have done this, you should have said that, you should have stuck up for yourself, you shouldn't have let them talk to you like that. And then, you know, we carry that on, and it's really powerful, yeah. Really powerful sometimes to sit back and listen to the voices, you know. But again, if you go back to that, you know, that divine bit of yourself, the adult bit, the divine bit, the higher self, what's that saying? Because that's in there as well. You know, who's listening to the voices? Where are the voices coming from? Why do I carry on doing that? You know, I can hear. So I've done a lot of work on myself through doing the therapy and stuff. You know, I know where, you know, whose voices they are from my past telling me, you should have done this, you should have said that, you made yourself look stupid there, you know, all of those type of things. It's like, okay, here we go again. It's, you know, when you see it, it's interesting. But you're right, they're powerful.
Yeah, it takes you back. I said for me, I think, again, I'm doing a lot of self work on myself at the moment, and that was something that it was just I think it was just an awe. It was an awe of it. It's just like how persistent you are to get me. So it was like get you back there, and then you sort out my way. It's very much like you were talking about like a child. It was like a child taking a tantrum inside me, going, "I want you to do this way. It has to be this way. It can't be this peaceful way." And you're just like, no, this is the way. The way I handle it was the right way, and not the other way.
But you're right. You're right in a way. It is that child. But when we say child, we think of a little child, but it's our emotional bit. It's powerful. It's a really powerful child. You know, it's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of say, and it can get you in a lot of trouble as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've done it in my past, Jonathan. I'm not proud of it. I'm going back a long time, but you know, maybe when I've got in an argument with somebody and the adult bit of me is in charge, and I've let it go, and like you've just said, then I've gone away, and that child bit's just chipping in my head. You shouldn't have let him get away. He thinks he's this, he thinks he's that. You know, and I remember doing it, Jonathan. The next time I've seen that person, bang, you know, and just think, and then it kicks in again. Why did you do that? Why didn't it's like you can't win. So, you know, you feel, it's almost like you're going to feel bad no matter what you do. It's like it's there to make you feel bad no matter what. Yeah. So, you know, why do I want to listen to that? What's the adult bit of me saying? What's the higher version, you know, the powerful bit of me saying, the higher self bit? What's that bit telling me to do?
Because the thing that I've found is that when you let that run you let that to get in the driving seat and drive you along, it all kind of goes back to fear. It all goes back like it's a big long line, like a root, like a vine. It goes way back to experience in the past, and it all just it's just literally it's again, it's, as you said about the chimp paradox. It's basically saying, based on your experiences, you're in danger. I'm taking over. You sit back and I'll let me run it the way it should be run. And as you say, before you know it, you're in trouble. People are kind of like times past, I would fly off the handle with my intentions being good, but I could see the shock in people's face to go, where'd that come from? Because I'm normally quite laid back, quite happy, and I'd just be like where, and it was just, you just see it taking over, and you're like, no, don't. But it's just like get you back. It's almost like a protective parent stepping and saying, like, you get in the car, I'm gonna sort this lot out. And it's unreal. Obviously,
but that's the chimp bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the chimp bit, Jonathan. And you got to think: do I want that bit driving the car? Do I want the chimp in charge when I'm, you know, like I say, driving a car is a great analogy. Do I want a chimp driving a car down the road? Of course I don't. You know, I want the adult bit to be in charge because it's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
And it is because it's scared. It's that amygdala, the basic bit of the brain, fight or flight. You know, that criticism, like you said, tapping into old hurts and old pains. This happened before and you didn't do anything. You better go and sort something out. It's like a critical parent as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And you find when you do, when you do, yeah, definitely, it's a very, I know we're kind of going off topic, but it's the difference between letting that manifest itself or come out and deal with the situation compared to the more higher thinking. I find when you act in a higher thinking mode, things go a whole lot better, and you actually find people going, oh, because they're expecting, they're going, right, I'm going to tell this person what I think of them. And when you don't react the way they expect you to, it's almost like, oh, and then they kind of go, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Look, I'm sorry, I stepped out of line there. And you're like, forget about it, it's all okay. And it's as you said, it's far more powerful and more productive.
Yeah, and you, like I say, it's good because first of all, it's seeing it in yourself, recognizing actually, I'm getting angry here. This is the child or the chimp bit of me kicking off. Do I want that? But then once you start getting that, you start seeing it in other people as well, and you can see, oh, this guy's in his chimp. So I've got to be careful how I deal with this situation. I'm going to go to adult, because if we go chimp to chimp, we'll end up falling out. Yeah. There's a place for the chimp. It's fight or flight. It goes back to what we were saying earlier about being vigilant. But I don't want to be going around in that all the time, because that's hyper-vigilant and it's damaging, on loads of different levels. So it's almost like, I heard Jordan Peterson talk the other day, and I love Jordan Peterson, and he was saying about this saying in the Bible about the meek shall inherit the earth. And he was saying about how people misinterpret that. It's about, it's about if you've got a sword, I've got a sword, I'm going to go around chopping everyone's head off. It's not about that. It's about, I've got a sword here, I could do some damage, but you know what, I'm choosing not to. Yeah. And that's, for me, that's what it's about. You do, for me, doing loads and loads of training and getting black belts and doing all these different things, then go, the last thing I want to do is use any of that stuff, ever. Yeah. I'm choosing not to. That's adult, but the chimp bit of me will be going around, kicking off left, right, and centre. Yeah. So, it's empowering to realise that we've got choices.
Definitely.
And we all have. And being vigilant, not hyper vigilant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And I think it again goes down to obviously the choices. If you're able to touch on, obviously, again, we're here talking about fear and about the film. There's obviously, it goes back to the beginning of the film. We all have a choice. Would you be able to elaborate on the choice that we make if we choose to let fear keep us where we are, and we stay in the groove that we're in? And the difference between taking the red pill and the blue pill, if that makes sense. What's the consequences then, obviously, of letting fear win and staying in the bubble that we're currently in? But it's obviously
I think the thing for me, Jonathan, is that I think we've got to be careful as well, because a lot of people think, I don't know, they might have a decent job, but they listen to, you're listening to people saying, oh, you can change your life and you can be this and you can be that. And you can, but that's, it's a hard road to go down, which is why most people don't do it. And also, does it go against, who you are? Like say, for example, I'll be honest, for years, I wanted to get on a big stage and talk to loads of people, and people kept saying to me, oh, Tony, you could be massive, you could do this. And then I've realised as I've got older, and part of me thought, I used to think, well, it's fear holding me back. And then I realised, but it's not something that I really want. I don't crave it, and I've never really craved it. It was almost, I was thinking, well, that's what I should want. That's what I should aim for. So, I think you've got to be careful. If you're in a job and the job's okay and life's okay, then, what's wrong with that? Again, it's your why. It goes back to what I said earlier about knowing why. Why do I want to leave this safe job and go and do something else? Why? And work that out. And if you've got that, then you'll get it.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you, like Nietzsche said, if you've got a strong enough why, you'll overcome any how. But you've got to know why you're doing it. If I'm only doing it because everyone else is saying, oh, you could do this, you could be, but I don't really want it, it's not really, it goes against who I am as a person, then I'm not going to do it. You can drag me kicking and screaming if but I'm not, because it goes against who I am as a person. It goes against my values. So I'd say for people, work that out. What are your values? What are the most important things to you in life? Say, for example, quite often people say, my number one value is family. How much time do you spend with your family? Your number one value is family, but you never see them. Well, if you're not, so you're not living in accordance with your values. So I would say to people, a simple little, well, it's not simple. You can sit down and write out your values and then number them 1 to 10. What's the most important one? And say, for example, just using that example of family, if number 1 is family, then, how much time are you spending with your family? If number 2 is health, what are you doing about your health? Are you looking after yourself? What's your diet like? What's your exercise like? Are you meditating? Those type of things. But if you're going off on a road because, there's lots of self-help books out there telling people they can be this, they can be that, and yeah. But actually, that's not for you, because it's not really, it goes against your values. So I'd say that first, work out your values, work out who you are and what you want and why.
Yeah.
Because again, we're geared in a society, aren't we? Like we said earlier, fear, to want more. We're always, if tomorrow, Jonathan, I often think about this, if we all tomorrow went, do you know what? I'm happy with my life and I'm happy with who I am and I don't need a new car. I drive around in an old banger. I'm happy with it, but if everybody did that tomorrow, you imagine what would happen in society.
Yeah.
It would pretty much stop, or it would change massively, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And, and the people who run society, and I don't know who they are, but you could guarantee they wouldn't like it. There'd be massive marketing campaigns going on out there to get you to do this and buy you this and buy you that. That's what it's all about. They want you to want more, want more, want more. I think Paul Simon said it in one of his songs. I was talking about this the other day. I was listening to one of his songs and it hit me, and he said it's something about, I can't remember the exact words, but human beings, it's indelibly marked in our brains to always want more. Yeah. And, I love that. When I heard it, I just thought, wow, that's powerful. It's almost like it is, but we're conditioned to want more, want more, want more. And there's nothing wrong with that if you know why.
Yeah.
Why you want more. And I think one of the things that the COVID thing has taught a lot of people, including me, is that I can get by on a lot less.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good things that's come out of it. And how important connection is for me as well, which I sort of knew, but,
it's like a demonstration of it.
Brought it home to me. Yeah, in real life, yeah. Because you're being told you can't do this, you can't do that, and that freedom and that choice as well. And we're quite lucky, somebody sent me a video of this demonstration in London about, it was a guy who didn't believe in vaccines. He sent me the demonstration about people singing, loads of people, you can shove your effing vaccine up your arse. And I thought, yeah, that's okay. Have the vaccine or don't have the vaccine, that's your choice. But if you lived in Russia or you lived in North Korea and a few other countries in the world, you wouldn't be able to do that. We're really lucky. And sometimes we need to remember, some of the good things that we've got, instead it goes back to what we were saying earlier about focusing on all the bad things.
Yeah.
We're quite lucky where we live and, all the things that we've got.
I think you've summed it up pretty well there. I mean, I think this is just my own view, so if I'm on point straight into the camera here, but I think we really, going back to what I was talking about, like McGran and her experiences growing up to what we're getting now, we've never had it so good, and I think it's easy to forget that. We're living a life that our ancestors wouldn't have believed. If you went back 100 years ago and said this is the way they're living in the 21st century, they would have laughed at you. They said that sounds like heaven or some kind of utopia or something. I know we're lucky to leave us a dystopia, but I think as you said, it's having gratitude and the realization that we're so lucky. We've a lot more individual freedom than we had 100 years ago.
Yeah, and it's how we use that, isn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah.
It's how we use that, like we're saying about social media. Social media is neither good or bad. It's just how we use it. Same as a knife. You put a knife in a surgeon's hand and he'll save your life. You put a knife in a mugger's life and he might kill you, or use it to rob you. It's not the knife. It's not the gun. It's not the social media. It's how we use it. And it can be good or bad. People have said to me, well, social media is good because it raises loads of money for charities, and it does. And it gets messages out there. But again, it's how we choose to use it and how we choose to, again, to focus in on the negative. Because if we stop and sit back, like you've just said, and sit back, how much life's changed and how good it is. I remember mobile phones coming out, Jonathan. It's how old I am. And I remember like just laughing when people saying these phones are going to come out and you're going to be able to walk. And I remember me and my mates taking the mick out of this one guy. We were saying, what are you going to do? Walk with the pulling a red telephone box behind you. You know, that's a mobile phone. We couldn't visualize that you'd have this little thing you'd hold in your hand and you'd be able to talk on it. And, you know, so I think and again, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, again, it's like I said right at the beginning, Jonathan, you know, and it's the same with Theo. It's all perception. You know, you can see the world as a terrible place. Shakespeare said it, didn't he? Our minds are powerful, so powerful we can make a heaven out of hell and a hell out of heaven. And again, I love that. You know, you can look at life and go, this is pretty good. It's pretty amazing. Or you can look at it and look at all the things that are going wrong in it and go, this is shit. It's a choice, isn't it? And I know we all go through bad times and people are going through bad times. I get that. But for a lot of the time, it's down to perception.
Definitely. I think it goes, I don't know, I've got this from a quote or a passage in someone's book and I can't remember, but I suppose it boils down to like, the analogy was like a garden. If you choose to water the weeds will continue to grow. So that's like bad thoughts, bad perceptions of the world, and fear. And if you starve the weeds and move them out and feed the plants, the flowers, that's obviously your positivity. You're going against it. You're overcoming fear. It's at the end of the day, it boils down to what you choose to feed, to water. Water the weeds, look after them, or tend the garden, and you get what you tend to, basically.
Yeah, and that takes work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because the weeds will grow. You've still got to go out there and take the weeds out and put some effort in. And it's the same with this. I think quite often with a lot of the mental health stuff, it's because we can't see it. You know, like I always say, I do some work in schools with kids and say, you know, if somebody's broke their arm, you know that they've got a broken arm, you can see it, it's in plaster. But if somebody's got some mental health stuff going on, you can't see it. You know, you don't know what's going on for people. But again, you know, we can train, we can work our own minds, you know, and routines help, don't they? You know, getting up in the morning and doing your meditations and, you know, just whatever it is, doing your exercise, all those little things, they're all just positive. You know, getting positive routines in your life.
You have that compound effect with that. The more you do that, the more positive and better you're kind of. Again, there's another analogy I heard that someone says it's like every good thing, like what you just said, every good habit is like a vote for. I think it was James Clear. I think it's a vote for your better self. You're making that vote to be the better version that you want to be, whereas all the bad habits are a vote to be the bad version of yourself. I know we're obviously one.
You've got to do the work.
Yeah. I know we're obviously we're running out of time. I just want to finish off again in the video. You talk about the Susan Jeffers fear pyramid. Would you really quickly just run through? I know obviously we don't have a visual aid, but I know at the bottom, again, you used Dave Hunter's story. You had learn martial arts. This is Dave's journey about facing his abuser. He was kind of he was abused, and he always, I think, in his mind, he knew he would face his abuser again. So he learned martial arts, told his family about the abuse, told the counsellor, told the police, and then faced the abuser in court, and that was the one you used in the film. Would you be able to just quickly run through the Susan Jeffers fear pyramid, if that's possible?
Well, that is it. That is the fear. So you basically, the idea with that is you draw a pyramid, and you start off with you put your biggest fear at the top. So say, for example, I mean, Dave did that one, but your biggest fear might be public speaking. So, which is for a lot of people, you put that at the top of the pyramid, and then you work out, right, what are the steps towards doing that? So it might be just the first bit might be to practice a speech in the mirror, then practice a speech with your wife or someone in your family, Then, as you're going up, now I'm going to practice to a couple of people, then a bigger group of people, until you actually work up to the top of the pyramid. So I guess it's desensitization. It's just, or exposure therapy, where you expose yourself to your fear little bit by bit. That's the idea of the pyramid.
Okay. Yeah. So you're basically, you're taking something that would almost like put fear of God in you, freeze you on the spot, breaking it down to bite-sized chunks, and then slowly go for it. So it'd be like a fear of the dentist. Maybe even just going into the waiting room, sitting there for 5 minutes, and then coming out again, and then eventually building up to where you're able to sit. The dentist is able to go out, say and go from there.
Yeah, go and talk to the dentist. So you're basically just building yourself up slowly. There's different ways of doing it. What is the fear? I remember a woman telling me she had a fear of rats, and I said, well, when you think of a rat, paint a picture of a rat for me, and straight away she went, oh, they're horrible, their tails are that big. Now, I've never seen a rat with a tail that big. I mean, some people might have, I don't know, but so again, it's how she's exaggerating that picture of a rat in her head. So, let's work on that and change that picture, break it down. Again, we exaggerate it, don't we? The fear. And there's a big thing I've been doing a lot recently, looking at a thing called memory change, and our mind, basically, if you look at, we could have a whole hour on this, Jonathan, but your memory is like the guide. It's almost like I don't know, years ago, I don't know if they still do them, but you used to be able to buy books on, if you had a certain type of car, you could buy a manual on how to fix it, and it'd tell you everything about that car. And your memory is like that for your brain. Because you think everything, it's like, for example, when you said about being bullied earlier, Jonathan, when you get in a situation, straight away, your brain will go back through all its memories. It's like, okay, I'm in this situation here. I'm not sure what's going on. What's happened in my past that I can relate to? So memory chains are really powerful, and again, that's where a lot of our stress comes from and stuff like that. So, can we look at those memory chains? Can we change our perception of things that have happened to us in the past? Again, it's a big topic. It's a big topic. But that's how we work. That's how your brain works. It's got to. If you think about it, it's got to.
And I suppose it
goes back to past events.
I suppose also your brain, it has to do things very quickly, so it obviously cuts things down and orders it in a way that it's really about, again, going back to the very start about death. It's about survival. It's about, I need to cut these memories out so you can react quicker, so you don't get obviously potentially get killed. From its perspective, from a survival mechanism.
It's incredible. You're talking about split seconds. So your brain has scanned all your life's memories in a split second and brought one forward. This is the closest one I could find to this situation. Okay. Last time you were in this situation, the guy picked on you. Right. Okay. So then you're trawling all your memories. Okay. There was another time. Okay. We'll use that one. So it's incredible how we work. But then if you can change those perceptions, around those memories, because that happened to me in the past, does it mean it's going to happen to me now? What have I attached to that? Especially, obviously the big abuse and things like that. What have I attached to that? Because quite often people who are abused blame themselves, so we start looking at that and we can change that.
No, it's a fascinating subject, and I say you can go so deep into it. There's a lot. It's a lot there, even like how, as you say, how we view ourselves. If you view yourself in a negative light and you hate yourself and you blame yourself for all the things that happen to you, you just follow a certain route, and you never, as you say again, that you hold yourself back. But obviously, if you switch that around, where you view yourself in a positive light and see yourself as a good person, you're capable. You can be so much more. It's definitely a deep subject to really get into.
It's a big one, yeah. But I think people already are much more than they think. But you're not going to know that unless you start looking at that. That'd be the advice I'd give to people. Look at yourselves, do some work around your values. Do some work around what's good in your life instead of what's bad about it. Those type of things. Change your perception.
Just reframe everything.
Reframe, yeah. They've done work, haven't they, in quantum physics where they've done experiments, and just by people observing the experiment, it's changed the experiment, and they don't know why. So they've done the experiment. It's a famous one with atoms where they fire it through a slit. They fire the atoms through a slit, and they basically know what pattern the atoms are going to make on the other side. But when anyone observes that, actually watches it, the patterns change.
Yeah.
So the conclusion that they've come to is just by observing, you can change, and we're all made out of atoms. So, it's quite powerful.
Yeah.
So by observing things and being aware of things, we can actually, again, change in that perception. Change your perception and you change your world. It's powerful.
It is.
But you don't, to do that, you need to work in rather than out.
Yeah. It even goes to, back to what we were talking about in the past. I mean, about people being in a victimhood. If you carry yourself as like head down, a victim, that's powerful in itself, because you're sending a signal out to it's almost like an animal looking for a mate, but you're sending a signal out to attract an abuser or a bully. So someone who's predatory, they're looking for someone like that, and when you come into their view, automatically your brain goes, they will not fight back. You can have your way with them. Whereas you mentioned about the time, I think you were at a bus stop, and the guy came down, and obviously, and the vibe he got off you was, oh, he's not somebody to mess with, and walked away.
Yeah.
And so there's a very good example, and I've experienced it myself. When you're more confident and you make eye contact and you stand up straight, it changes the dynamic immediately. The person just goes, "Oh, you're not someone to mess with. I'll leave you be."
Definitely, yeah. It's about confidence, isn't it? Bullies in particular, tend to pick on people that lack confidence. Do you know what I mean? I've had women say to me about taking their kids to boxing and stuff like that, but the kids are more into theatre. I said, well, why don't you take them dancing or to theatre or something? Because then it's just, if they're giving off that confidence, they won't get picked on. They'll go and pick on somebody else that hasn't got their confidence. You don't necessarily have to go into a fighting art to get that. And that's coming from someone who's done a lot of different fighting arts, but it's just the confidence bit. If that's how you get confidence, like you said, they're not going to pick on
you. No, it's fascinating. Again, I know we've run out of time, so Tony, thank you very much for coming back on. And again, I'd recommend anyone watching this, do watch Embrace Your Fears. That's the cover of the film there. It's a really good film. It's 51 minutes long. Features Tony, Jeff Thompson's in it as well, and it's a real deep dive into fear. And hopefully we've covered a good bit here today that anyone watching this can take action. Don't just sit and watch. Take notes and put into practice some of the things that Tony's talked about. So thank you, Tony.
Yeah. No, thanks, Jonathan. If people want to get in touch with me, probably easier just to email. I don't know if you put it on here, Jonathan. But
I can
Tony at okay, brilliant. That's great. And thanks it's good to see you again, Jonathan. And Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes, you too. And again, Happy New Year's, everybody. And again, I think it's like, regardless of what happens on the outside world, I think 2021 can be a good or bad year depending on how you perceive it. So so thank you.
Work on the inside.